Stop reaching. Hand on the dash, McCree.
Very thin.
McCree, hands out your pocket and down.
I don't have nothing. Reaching for something. I'm not reaching for nothing. I don't have nothing in my pocket. Just come over here. I'm going to keep on. We'll let you get on out, man. Just comply first.
This intense physical confrontation did not begin with violence. It started on a damp afternoon under gray skies, with the simple routine flash of police lights. On June 22, 2023, patrol officers in Orlando observed a Honda Accord moving at a speed significantly above the legal limit. The vehicle's failure to adapt to the slick, rain-soaked roads prompted the officers to initiate a traffic stop. The driver pulled over into the lot of a gas station, a mundane setting that would soon become the stage for a dramatic escalation of events. An officer exited his patrol car and cautiously approached the driver's side of the Honda. His initial interaction was standard procedure, colored by the dreary weather. He pointed out the reasons for the stop. Not only was the driver speeding, but he had failed to turn on his headlights despite the rain. A clear safety violation. The driver, a middle-aged black man, seemed to listen from behind the wheel. The officer's tone was initially conversational, even familiar, as if he recognized the man from previous encounters. He requested the driver's identification, a simple command that would mark the first point of contention in this unfolding incident. The interaction began to sour as the driver hesitated. The officer, maintaining his position by the open car door, continued to speak with him. He asked a routine but critical question about the presence of any weapons in the vehicle. While awaiting a clear answer, he instructed the driver to keep his hands visible on the steering wheel. This small command was a subtle shift in the dynamic, an indication that the officer's awareness was heightened. He sensed a tension that went beyond a typical traffic violation. The driver's demeanor started to change. He began to appear nervous, his body language communicating a growing unease that the officer immediately noticed. A sheen of sweat appeared on the man's brow, a physical response that seemed disproportionate to the situation. The officer pointed it out, noting that the man wasn't sweating when the stop first began. This observation served as a verbal marker of the escalating tension. The driver's agitation became more pronounced, his movements within the car growing more frequent and less predictable. He shifted in his seat and reached around the cabin, actions that immediately set the officer on high alert. The officer's demeanor hardened in response. His voice, once calm, now took on a sharp, authoritative edge.
McCree, stop moving around the car. Put your hands on the dash. Put your hands on the dash. Stop reaching, McCree. Stop reaching now. Stop reaching.
The commands were clear and direct, designed to regain control of a situation that was rapidly deteriorating. He ordered the driver to stop moving and place his hands on the dashboard where they could be clearly seen. The driver, however, failed to comply. He continued his furtive movements, ignoring the officer's repeated shouts. This act of defiance was a critical turning point. What had been a routine traffic stop was now transforming into a high-stakes standoff. The driver's refusal to follow simple lawful orders signaled to the officer that the risk level had increased exponentially. He was no longer dealing with a simple speeder. He was confronting an individual who was actively resisting authority, raising serious questions about what he might be trying to hide. The officer unholstered his taser, the yellow weapon a clear symbol of his readiness to use force if necessary. He repeated his commands, his voice strained with urgency. But the man in the driver's seat remained non-compliant, setting the stage for the inevitable physical intervention. The standoff reached its breaking point. With the driver refusing to show his hands or exit the vehicle, the officer made the decision to physically remove him. He reached into the car, grabbing the driver's arm in an attempt to pull him out. The man resisted fiercely, clutching the steering wheel with all his might, anchoring himself inside the vehicle. The struggle was intense and chaotic. The officer pulled with immense force, his body strained against the driver's resistance. In the ensuing chaos, the car's airbag deployed, filling the small cabin with smoke and adding to the disarray. The sudden explosive sound punctuated the struggle, but it did not deter the officers who had now converged on the scene. Several other uniforms joined the effort, overwhelming the driver's resistance through sheer numbers. They successfully extracted him from the car and forced him down onto the wet asphalt of the gas station lot. The transition from a verbal confrontation to a physical takedown was swift and decisive. The driver was now on the ground, surrounded by officers, his struggle to remain in the car having ended in a complete loss of control. A female family member, who had been a passenger, was now outside the vehicle, her voice rising in protest as she watched the scene unfold. On the ground, the man continued to resist, squirming and twisting as officers worked to secure him.
You shoot, you shoot, what you do?
Grab his arm. Free on the ground, do it now.
Hey, go high and go low, go low.
Someone go low.
The officers' movements were practiced and efficient, a coordinated effort to subdue the struggling suspect. One officer controlled his legs while another worked to wrench his arms behind his back. The clicks of the handcuffs locking into place signified the end of his physical resistance. He was now fully in police custody. With the man secured, the officers immediately began a thorough search of his person. One officer, wearing black gloves, methodically patted him down, checking his pockets and waistband for weapons or contraband. The female family member's protests grew louder and more frantic. She moved closer to the scene, her voice filled with anguish and anger as she questioned the officer's actions and the level of force being used. She directed her words at the man on the ground, her tone a mixture of frustration and concern, questioning why he never listened and always made things harder for himself. Her presence added a layer of emotional turmoil to the already tense atmosphere, creating a chaotic scene of enforcement and family distress. The officers attempted to de-escalate the situation with the distraught woman while maintaining control of the suspect.
You want me to get in the car, or are you just gonna throw a tantrum the whole time? Get in the car for? What do you think?
One officer engaged with her directly, trying to explain the necessity of their actions and instructing her to maintain a safe distance. Meanwhile, the suspect on the ground was being prepared for transport. The officers informed him that he was under arrest and needed to stand up and walk to the patrol car. They warned him that continued resistance would only result in additional charges, such as attempting to escape. The man remained defiant, refusing to cooperate and stand on his own. This forced the officers to physically lift him from the pavement. The process was awkward and difficult, hampered by his limp, uncooperative body. They half-dragged, half-carried him towards the waiting patrol car, his body a dead weight against their efforts. Each step was a struggle, prolonging the tense scene in the middle of the gas station lot, as onlookers watched. The man's passive resistance was his final attempt to exert some control over a situation in which he had lost all power. Getting the arrested man into the back of the police cruiser proved to be another significant challenge. He resisted being placed in the vehicle, bracing his feet and arching his back.
Oh my God, why are you pushing me to the car, bro?
McCree, this is why you need to be searched.
The officers had to use considerable force to bend him at the waist and guide him onto the hard plastic seat of the rear compartment. The female relative stood nearby, her voice a constant stream of protest against what she perceived as police brutality. She yelled at them about the way they were handling him, her distress palpable. An officer explained that a thorough search was required before placing a suspect in a vehicle, a standard procedure that was made more difficult by the man's complete lack of cooperation. The scene was a chaotic convergence of physical force, loud commands, and emotional outcry. Eventually, the officers managed to get the man fully inside the vehicle and securely shut the door, finally enclosing him within the patrol car and separating him from the volatile scene outside. With the primary suspect secured, the officers turned their attention back to the vehicle and the remaining passengers. An officer began a more detailed search of the suspect's pockets, recovering items that had been felt during the initial pat-down. He found a significant amount of loose cannabis shake, confirming their suspicions that the driver was in possession of illegal substances. This discovery provided a partial explanation for the man's desperate attempts to evade and resist the officers. He was not merely a speeder, he was a convicted felon illegally possessing drugs. The investigation continued as officers spoke with the other passengers. They explained the situation to the female family member, who remained at the scene. In a surprising turn, a search of the car's trunk revealed fishing gear. This corroborated the passenger's story about their activities for the day, and helped establish that they were not involved in the driver's illegal activities. As a result, the other occupants of the vehicle cooperated fully with the investigation, and were ultimately not charged with any crime. They were innocent bystanders caught up in the driver's poor decisions. The aftermath of the chaotic arrest settled over the gas station. The driver sat in the back of the patrol car, his journey ending not at a fishing spot, but in a jail cell. The consequences of his actions were severe and numerous.
He was charged with escape, possession of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon, battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer.
He was charged with a litany of serious offenses: escape, possession of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon, battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer both with and without violence, and possession of cannabis. Each charge stemmed directly from the choices he made during the traffic stop, from his initial non-compliance to his final physical resistance. A simple ticket for speeding and failing to use headlights had spiraled into a life-altering event, demonstrating how quickly a routine interaction can escalate when an individual chooses confrontation over cooperation. The flashing lights of the patrol car eventually pulled away, leaving the damp parking lot behind, a silent witness to a conflict that was entirely avoidable.